you guys doing today? Today's video is our scary story time by, I believe, Nightmare Tales. I really like doing these scary stories for you guys. So I hope that you like them too. Please consider liking, comment, and subscribing. I really appreciate it. And you can support me in my Patreon. All my links are in my bio. Alright guys, without further ado, let's get into it. Oh wow.
Her bare feet flew across the filthy ground. The tree branches struck her as she ran through the woods, and then she leapt over a rock and onto the road.
Okay.
She stumbled and fell to her side. Behind her, she heard him bellow, "Stop! Stop, you little harlot!"
Oh.
She grew terrified and picked herself up and promptly ran. She saw the road that led to the bamboo groves and headed towards it.
Run.
"Kana, stop!" His
Holy
voice
cow.
slurred just a bit to give evidence of his inebriated state. The alcohol in his system did nothing to restrict his
That would be
movements,
scary to see
but
in the
only
woods.
served to enhance his rage. Kana could feel hot tears run down her cheeks, and she wiped it with one hand, noticing that the blood and her tears had merged. It wasn't her blood that was sprayed over her cheeks and her dress.
Really?
Michi. Kana felt a fresh wave of grief wash over her. Just an hour ago, she had been with Michi at her home, after snacking on tea
Okay.
and rice crackers.
What happened?
Michi had pulled her playfully towards her, and they were laughing, giggling, touching, caressing, when suddenly there had been a knock on the door. "Must be the workers," Michi said, getting up. "My parents are getting the tatami mats replaced in the sitting room. I'll be right back." Kana had felt the blood drain from her face.
Oh no.
Her father worked for the tatami makers. She got up slowly and almost breathed a sigh of relief when she saw another man in the doorway.
Okay.
Then suddenly, he was pushed aside and Kana saw her father Hiroto enter, his eyes bloodshot, his cheeks red and swollen from the alcohol he perpetually consumed.
So he's
He
angry.
pointed an accusatory finger at her. "I saw you through the window." He looked at Michi with disgust.
Oh no.
With her! "Father, let me explain." Kana barely had time to speak another word before her father removed his tatami knife from his belt and plunged it into Michi's neck.
No.
Kana was barely aware of the cry that had come out of her mouth as she watched Michi collapse on the ground,
Oh my gosh.
gurgling. Hiroto showed no mercy as he removed the dagger and repeatedly stabbed Michi with it. The other worker quietly retreated, his face stern, as if he too thought that the girls deserved this punishment. When Michi was no longer moving, he turned towards Kana. "You have brought shame upon this family. It is your turn to die now." Kana thought she would never move, considering the horror she had just witnessed. But instincts took over, and she found herself towards the back door and out of the house.
Oh my gosh.
The memories
so
of her dear
sad.
friend filled her heart with grief. Kana let out another sob as she remembered Michi looking in her direction, silently pleading for help as Hiroto stabbed her mercilessly.
That is sad.
"Come back here," Hiroto screamed. "Don't you dare disobey me." Kana entered the bamboo groves and kept running. Her lungs felt hot and heavy, so she stopped to catch her breath and made the mistake of turning her head.
What would you guys do?
When she saw how
Your
close
parents
Hiroto
came in like
was,
that?
she shrieked. She turned and began to run, only to trip on something and sprawl on the ground. Her breath was knocked out of her and her teeth clattered together.
The worst
She
time.
looked up and saw a small dark figure watching her. His silhouette showed he was about 3 feet tall and stout, wearing an odd hat. "Kana!" Hiroto screamed. Kana snapped back and picked herself up again. She ran as fast as she could when suddenly she felt something grab her hair and tug.
He got her.
Kana fell down and screamed when her father towered above her. He grabbed her by the neck and held her down. "You have brought shame upon my family. I curse you.
Shame.
I hope you burn in hell, you disgusting sinner."
Oh my
He brought
gosh.
down the dagger, but Kana deflected his hand, rolled away, and stood up to flee. "Watch out," she heard a voice say. Kana was so startled by the unexpected warning that she didn't look ahead, and suddenly the ground slipped from under her feet.
No.
She fell, and her arms flailed to catch anything to save herself. She landed with a thud and felt the remainder of her breath being knocked out of her.
Wow.
Above her, she saw the dark head of her father peering down at her from the cliff. help. She struggled to speak as her mouth filled with blood. Good riddance, he heard Hiroto say. You are not my daughter.
Oh
I
my
curse you
gosh.
to hell.
Oh.
Kana felt her breath slowing down and tried to raise her hand only to find that her wrist was twisted and the bones from her leg were showing. She tried to call out again, then turned her head sideways and saw blood spill out of her mouth.
It's not
When
gonna
she
be much
turned back
longer.
again, her father was gone. She thought about Michi, about her sweet and kind face, about her almond-shaped eyes and small mouth and her soft skin. Kana knew she was dying and decided to embrace it, just so she could see Michi again.
That's so sad.
The little old man had been waiting for her. He could sense her. They shared the same blood after all. He went towards her, muttering a profanity as he found his movements to be constricted because of the curse laid upon him. Every movement produced a thick metallic clunking sound that the kids had
That would
found
be
amusing enough to harass him.
Creepy.
He had found a haven in the bamboo groves where he wished to live, undisturbed. But tonight, his instincts told him he had to come out of the shadows, and when he saw her, he knew she was the only one who could save him.
Really?
He saw the pool of blood growing under her, but that didn't alarm him.
How?
It wasn't too late just
It's
yet.
gonna save you.
He reached down and clasped her hand with his small, frail one. He felt a powerful jolt and smiled to himself. It was her, all right. His instincts were never wrong. He closed his eyes and forced himself to concentrate on the nature around him from which he would draw his power.
Oh?
He began the incantation and felt Kana's hand begin to warm. As the incantation went on, he felt the glow of energy grow within him. His hands tingled as it connected with the girl's. Her eyes flickered,
What is going on?
and he saw her chest rise once more. And then just as suddenly, she sat up and screamed. He was so shocked that he stumbled back and fell. The girl kept screaming, and then he saw her hand light up in flames and then die down, leaving behind a long scar that started from her little finger to her wrist, from where it forked down to her elbow.
What?
The old man approached her cautiously. The girl had stopped screaming, but she was watching her hand curiously.
Can she play with fire?
When her eyes met with his, she opened her mouth and screamed
Oh my
again.
God.
Don't be afraid of my form, he told her. I've been cursed. I brought you back to life. I'll explain it all. He moved closer to study her
Okay.
arm. But first, tell me, why were you sent to hell?
Oh man. Oh, to be
A
continued.
huge thank you to all who support us through Patreon. Your ongoing support is greatly appreciated.
We're definitely gonna watch this. We're gonna watch this. There's multiple parts to this. Like her hand lit on fire. That was kind of crazy. I like these stories. I like learning more about, especially in different cultures, how they're written. This seems to have taken place maybe in an Asian culture. So I wonder if it's based on that. I didn't recognize the little guy, so we'll have to learn more about him. Anyway, if you guys like this video, please like, comment, subscribe. I appreciate all of you, and thank you so much for supporting the channel. Alright guys, until the next time, take care. Bye!